she kissed the millionaire at the gala and discovered he had loved her for a very long time. Hey there, lovely soul. Welcome back to Noah's Stories, my dear family. Before we begin, please join me in a heartfelt prayer. Heavenly Father, please bless everyone listening to this story. Grant them happiness, peace, and guide them toward finding their true love. Amen. My beautiful family, please don't forget to like, comment, and share this video. Your support means everything to me. And now let me tell you a story, a quiet one, of a man who watched from afar and the woman who unknowingly held his heart for 5 years. Ethan Blake sat alone in the top-floor office of Horizon Enterprises. Beyond the glass wall in front of him, the city lights flickered like stars scattered across concrete, but his gaze was fixed on the familiar figure stepping out into the rain. Maya Ellis, wrapped in a thin coat that barely shielded her from the cold, hurried along the slick stone path. Her emerald green umbrella offered little defense against the steady downpour. Ethan wasn't sure why he stood there every night, waiting until she disappeared past the security gate. Perhaps because, for the past 5 years, it was the only moment he allowed himself to truly look at the woman he loved. No one at the company knew Ethan had spent 5 years loving Maya in silence. To them, he was the composed private CEO, reserved, measured, and married to his work. But behind the quarterly reviews and balance sheets beat a heart quietly claimed by a young woman with fire in her eyes and a belief in building something that mattered more than profit. She was the light he never dared reach for but never stopped watching. 5 years ago, on an early spring morning, Maya Ellis walked into Horizon Enterprises with a folder in hand and determination in her eyes. She wore a tailored navy blue suit, the color standing in striking contrast to her white skin. Her curls framed a face that radiated intelligence and quiet warmth. Ethan remembered that day clearly, not because of her impressive resume, but because of her answer when he asked why she wanted to work at Horizon. "I want to build things that last," Maya had said, her voice steady and calm, unlike most candidates. "Not just glass and steel structures, but true legacies, things that change lives." Those words struck something deep within Ethan, a part of his heart he thought long sealed. He had built Horizon from nothing, out of childhood dreams and old scars from Stonefield, the crumbling neighborhood he once called home. He never imagined anyone would see his company as more than a profit machine, but Maya did. She saw it. When he shook her hand after the interview, he felt a faint spark, fleeting, almost imagined. He told himself it was just fatigue, but something inside him shifted. That day, he didn't just hire a new team member. He unknowingly opened the door to someone who would touch the part of him he'd long kept hidden. And he had no idea that from the moment Maya stepped through that door, everything would begin to change. 5 years had passed since Maya began working at Horizon. In all that time, Ethan Blake never once spoke of his feelings. He simply watched, from a distance, in silence, with the quiet devotion of a man in love. He noticed the way she hummed an unknown tune while reviewing quarterly reports. He knew she brought homemade banana bread for the custodial staff every Friday morning, a small kindness no one mentioned, but he never missed. He recognized the way her posture straightened before boardroom presentations, the fire in her eyes when defending a proposal she believed in. To most colleagues, Maya was just a hard-working, promising employee, but to Ethan, she was a vivid burst of life in a world of strategies and sterile numbers. He never interfered openly, but supported her in ways no one ever saw. One day, after Maya casually mentioned to a coworker that her computer was running slow, a brand new laptop appeared on her desk the next morning. She assumed it was IT. When her parking spot was relocated to a safer area after a minor incident in the garage, she thought it was a new protocol. When her younger sister received a prestigious art scholarship, she never knew the anonymous benefactor was the CEO of the company she worked for. Ethan didn't do any of it for recognition. He did it because he loved how she cared, loved who she was, even if she never looked at him that way. He didn't need her to know. As long as he could see her every day, hear her voice in meetings, witness the little things she did, it was enough. Sometimes, love didn't need words. just presence. Rain was falling steadily as Maya left Horizon Tower later than usual. She had just completed the final edits on the Carver project proposal, and her mind throbbed with exhaustion. Reaching the parking lot, her agent gave only a weak groan each time she turned the key. "Not tonight," she whispered, trying again. "Nothing." After a few failed calls to mechanics, Maya leaned against the hood, letting the cool drizzle mist her face. She was used to long days, but tonight she felt a particular kind of loneliness. A low purr of an engine interrupted her thoughts. A sleek black car rolled toward her. The window lowered, revealing a face she never expected. "Car trouble?" Ethan Blake asked, his voice noticeably warmer than she'd ever heard in the office. Maya straightened, smoothing her skirt. "Yeah, seems it finally gave up on me," she replied, forcing a smile. "Call me Ethan," he said, then paused. "Can I offer you a ride home?" She hesitated, glancing down at her soaked heels, the rain drumming louder. In 5 years, she had never seen him outside the walls of Horizon, yet something in his voice, softer than usual, made her heart stutter. "Thank you," she said quietly, sliding into the warmth of his world. The car's interior was warm, laced with leather and a subtle hint of cologne. As they pulled out of the lot, she gave her address in Oakbridge, a modest neighborhood, far from Ethan's world. He said nothing. "Do you always work this late?" she asked, breaking the silence. "Often," he replied, "but maybe for different reasons than you." "And what do you think mine are?" she smiled. He glanced at her, striving to prove yourself in a world that doesn't always make room for people who look like you. The quiet truth in his words silenced her. She looked at him, not as the distant CEO, but as a man who understood struggle and silent endurance. In that moment, the space between them began to close, not in rank or title, but in empathy. 2 weeks later, Horizon hosted its annual charity gala at the Grand Bellamy Hotel, a glittering space dressed in white orchids and crystal chandeliers. Maya stood on the edge of the ballroom, dressed in a sapphire silk gown that hugged her curves and fell in elegant waves. She'd spent nearly a month's salary on it, justifying it as a professional investment. Planning to hide here all night, Nadia, her marketing colleague, appeared beside her with 2 flutes of champagne. Maya let out a soft laugh. "These events make me feel out of place." "You're the smartest person in this room," Nadia whispered, glancing toward the stage where Ethan Blake stood speaking with the mayor, tall, composed, striking in his perfectly tailored tuxedo. Since that rainy night, something had shifted. Glances held longer, conversations felt less formal. Maya wasn't sure if she was imagining it until Ethan appeared behind her. "Miss Ellis?" His voice came deep, almost gentle. "May I have this dance?" She turned. Her heart skipped. He was looking at her, not like a CEO assessing a team member, but like a man who couldn't look away from the woman in front of him. "I'm not sure I belong out there," she murmured, glancing at the dance floor where polished shoes glided effortlessly. "Then neither do I," he said, offering his hand. Maya placed her hand in his. As their fingers touched, something small but very real sparked between them. And as they stepped into the gentle sway of their first waltz, Maya realized the world had stopped turning. There was only the two of them. 3 weeks after the gala, the city was hit by its worst storm in a decade. Horizon had released employees early, but Maya remained, finalizing the presentation for the Carver project. "You're still here?" Ethan's voice came from the doorway. His shirt was slightly rumpled, tie loosened, and hair tousled in a way she'd never seen. "Just tightening up a few details," she said, turning her screen toward him. "The storm's getting worse. Parts of the parkway are already flooded," he warned, not as a CEO giving orders, but as someone genuinely concerned. "My car's still in the shop. I was going to catch the bus." His jaw tightened. "Wait 10 minutes. I'll drive you." That's not a suggestion. 15 minutes later, they left Horizon together. But the road to Maya's neighborhood was blocked by flooding. Eventually, they turned into a small cafe called Rivers, its warm lights and rich coffee aroma wrapping around them like a blanket. "Not where you pictured spending your evening, I guess," Maya smiled, hands curled around her steaming chai. "No, but it's not bad," he replied, fingers tracing the rim of his mug. By candlelight, they spoke more than ever before. Maya shared about caring for her sick mother. Ethan opened up about growing up in Stonefield, about his grandmother who raised him, and the library where he used to lose himself in books about architecture. "When you grow up with nothing," he said, "you learn to build safety with your own hands." She looked at him for a long time. For the first time, Maya didn't see the powerful CEO. She saw a boy who once had no one, who had spent a lifetime building safe spaces for others. She never expected to see him like this, real, close, and unexpectedly vulnerable. And in that small cafe, between rain and candlelight, between 2 cups of tea and coffee, something between them shifted. Something that would not go back to what it had been before. That afternoon, Maya was asked by the executive assistant to deliver a presentation folder to Ethan. He had just returned from Chicago and was scheduled for a private investor meeting before the evening gala. Following the directions, she arrived at St. Gabriel's Church, a small stone chapel tucked between 2 towering glass buildings, almost invisible to the busy world outside. She never expected Ethan to be there. The man she knew was composed, analytical, seemingly untouched by matters of faith. As the heavy wooden door closed behind her, Maya froze. In the flickering candlelight, she saw him, kneeling quietly at the front pew, back straight, head bowed. Then he spoke. His voice was low and rough, not loud, but every word struck like a bell in the silence. "I used to think strength meant needing no one," Ethan murmured. "It meant getting up after every hit, swallowing every tear, and building walls no one could climb." He lifted his gaze to the altar. "When I was 10, my father beat my mother in front of me. I stood there, frozen, powerless. He left days later. She died of cancer 2 years after. My grandmother raised me, the only person who ever taught me that love wasn't weakness." He sighed, gripping a small rosary tightly in his hand. "I forgot that lesson. I turned fear into ambition, pain into control. I built Horizon to prove I wasn't that helpless boy anymore." His voice cracked slightly. "And then she came, Maya, a woman who reminded me that kindness still exists, that love can be gentle. She doesn't know it, but I've loved her since the moment she walked into my office." Maya stood frozen in the back, heart pounding, file still in her hands. "I'm afraid," Ethan confessed, "not of loving her. I've lived with that. But of what she'll do if she ever sees who I really am. All the cracks, all the shadows I've kept buried." Silence followed, heavy and sacred. "Please," he whispered, "help me stop being the boy who couldn't save his mother and become the man who dares to love her, openly, entirely. No more masks, no more walls." Maya quietly slipped out, as if carrying his heart with her. She was never meant to hear it, but now she had. And she knew, more clearly than ever, Ethan Blake wasn't flawless. He was fractured, but strong enough to love with everything he had left. The fundraising gala for the Carver Project was held at Ethan's private countryside estate, a wide open space draped in golden lights and blooming wildflowers. No one imagined the CEO of Horizon owned a place so peaceful. Even fewer knew it held the truest pieces of his soul. Maya arrived in a deep crimson gown, a color she had never worn before, but tonight she wanted to be seen, to see and be seen. She didn't search for Ethan right away. She waited, and when their eyes met across the crowd, both of them knew. It was time. As the formal program neared its end, the music faded. One of the staff stepped up, gently asking guests to turn their attention to a lit space at the far end of the garden, where hundreds of rose petals had been arranged into a giant heart on the grass. At the center of that heart stood Maya, in a deep crimson gown, her hair loose, standing tall amid flickering candles and flowers. Silence fell over the crowd. "Forgive the interruption," Maya began, her voice shaking slightly but steady. "I just have a few words. For one person." Her gaze sought Ethan, who now stood frozen among the guests. "Ethan," she said his name aloud for the first time, You once prayed for the courage to love me, but maybe it's me who needs to step forward first." She took a deep breath, then continued, "I know your past has shadows. I've seen them, but I don't want a flawless man. I want the one who spent his life protecting others from the darkness he once knew. I love you, not despite the cracks, but because of the light that still shines through them." Ethan walked slowly toward her, his eyes shimmering. When he reached her, he didn't speak. He just held out his hand. She placed hers in his, gently. "If you're still afraid, let me be the one to hold on." And she moved forward to give him a kiss. The space erupted in applause and emotion. But for them, there was only one truth, a heart, long hidden, finally answered in full. After Maya confessed her love in the rose heart at the gala and Ethan stepped forward to take her hand, the crowd erupted in applause, but they heard none of it. Ethan leaned in and whispered, "Come with me." They slipped away from the music and the astonished stares. Ethan led her back to the main house, his pace urgent, as though afraid this moment might vanish if he didn't hold it tightly. That night wasn't flashy, just two people who had lived in silence, finally living out loud. In a room bathed in candlelight, they kissed for the first time without fear. No longer CEO and employee, just Ethan and Maya. Two souls who had loved too quietly for too long. The next morning, Maya awoke in the attic bedroom of Ethan's farmhouse. Gentle sunlight poured through the curtains, illuminating the soft beige blankets and embroidered pillows. She turned and found Ethan watching her, the same look as last night, only more peaceful. "You stood in a heart of roses," he murmured, "and did what I couldn't." She smiled, reaching to touch his cheek. "Because I knew you needed to be seen, to be chosen, to be held." Ethan sat up, wrapped his arm around her, and pulled her close. "I used to think love had to be hidden, follow the rules, stay quiet. But last night, you broke every one of those rules." Maya rested her head on his shoulder, silent. They sat like that, unhurried, no explanations needed, as if both were relearning how to breathe after years of roles and defenses. "This room, it's warmer than I expected," Maya murmured, taking in the wood-paneled walls, the bookshelf, the old photograph of Ethan with his grandmother hanging by the window. "This is the only place I've ever truly felt like myself," he replied. "I used to keep it to myself, but now, I want you to belong here too." She turned to him, something deeper than emotion glimmering in her eyes. "I've never felt this safe," she whispered, "not because of the house, but because of the person next to me." Ethan reached out, brushing her cheek. "You're my home, Maya." On the morning after their confession, there was no grand display, no flowers, no rings, no dramatic gestures, just a small universe where two once lonely people had finally found one another. In that quiet room tucked away in the countryside, the noisy world outside faded. Tay didn't talk about forever, but when Ethan reached over, tangled his fingers with hers, and they sat there in silence, the future didn't feel so far away anymore.